Welcome to Smells Like Potential, the rewatch podcast you didn't know you needed. After a rough loss to Man City, we follow Beard After Hours in an adventure where lost keys, love, and a limo ride mix in this Scorsese esque standalone episode.
And standalone it is. It's either something that you love or you hate or you try to ignore. People rarely have middling feelings about this episode. But what makes this podcast special is that we have a guest today. And I'd love to have Claudia introduce herself.
Hello, friends. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I'm so very excited. My name is Claudia, and I am a Spanish teacher at the same school where Miss Delane works. We share our love for Ted Lasso almost every time we see each other. What drew me to Ted Lasso is the unity that it creates. Even though we like our best qualities and our best moments, we also have to remember the moments that helped us grow and that we are allowed to grow rather than forever be stuck in that mistake or choice that we made.
It's those uncomfortable moments where we experience growth and development. And this show, even though it's a comedy, really doesn't shy away from those difficult challenges that we're allowed to see our characters grow through. One quick note about this episode is, as Delane referenced, it's paying homage to Martin Scorsese's movie After Hours. It's a classic 1985 movie. Some call it film noir, some call it absurdist. It's sort of a comedy, it's also dark. It's a very interesting movie that also splits the Scorsese fandom as well. It's sort of an outside the box movie for him. And it came out of the outgrowth of a failure of another movie. So suddenly he found himself wide open and expressed interest in this unknown script that the two main authors had been promoting. And so it was a big win for them.
I read the plot summary of After Hours. I couldn't watch it, and it seems a little strange. I enjoyed Beard After Hours. I don't know that I would enjoy Scorsese's After Hours.
Fair enough. And I didn't enjoy this after Beards After Hours the first time I watched it, but in the rewatch, I have to say,
Really?
getting ready for this episode, I have a whole new appreciation for it. There's so many levels happening.
Claudia, you said that you were interested in joining us for this specific episode. Tell me your favorite part.
The whole thing is just, I think it's an equivalent of Beard's Mind. And I think that's why I love it so much because, like you guys talked about in the first episode, Beard is not a relational person at all. And we get to see so little of who Beard is and why he is the way that he is. And I think this episode, even though it doesn't take us through a super intense reason as to why Beard is the way he is, it definitely takes us into his mind. And the first time I watched it, I was like, "What the heck was that?" But then after rewatching it, and I've rewatched Ted Lasso probably more times than I want to admit, but the second time and the third and yesterday when I watched it again, every single time is something new that I see, and it's just so awesome. It is one of my favorites.
It is a constant comment of mine. Every time I rewatch, there's something totally new, right? And Brett Goldstein, our beloved Roy, was one of the writers of this episode, and he said it's a love letter to Brendan Hunt, which
Oh,
I know I thought was fantastic. They said they were thinking about what would Ted Lasso be if it was from Beard's point of view. So you absolutely nailed it. That was their goal.
Yeah. And I like your perspective. I really do think it's a glimpse into his brain. There's interesting references and experiences and things that only seem to happen to someone like Beard.
Okay, before we dive into all Beard all the time, let's talk about the end of this episode. Beard brings coffee. It's his turn for the rewatch of the film, and he or brings three different drinks: a flat white, a coffee black, and a peppermint latte. Whose drink is whose?
And just to give you the multiple choice, in the room are Ted, Roy, and Nate.
So flat white, coffee black, and peppermint latte.
I personally think that, and I'll explain why Roy is coffee black. I think that coffee is just Roy, it's just his personality. The other two were a little bit, I had to think about these a little bit more. And eventually I went with the flat white for Nate, and I went with the peppermint latte for Ted. because in the first episode when he meets Rebecca, she asks him if he wants anything to drink, and because he's so sleep deprived, he wants something that has caffeine in it, but that doesn't taste like caffeine. And I feel like the peppermint latte would do that.
Spot
Nice.
on. That's the same three I chose. And
Oh,
it's worth noting that of those three, I would choose the peppermint latte because, like Ted, I need to not taste the coffee. And so I put mocha, I put cinnamon, I put peppermint. Those are my drinks of choice. And while I've tried both of the others, yeah, no, it's got to be something with sweet or sugar or something. And I feel like Ted very much is in that same space. And flat white sounds like the right drink for Nate because he's so often underappreciated and overlooked. And flat is sort of a word that also means overlooked, underappreciated. It lands as an adjective for me, for Nate.
I went with none of those. Are you ready?
Oh, hit us.
Okay. So flat white is going to be Ted. There's just a little bit of milk in it. Coffee black is Nate because he wants to appear to be strong. He's lacking in confidence and just no sugar, no cream. I'm a coach. Just
Mm.
give me coffee. And then Roy is the peppermint latte.
Oh, that is an interesting take.
And
Wow.
it also makes sense that perspective that you bring up, Delane, about Nate wanting to appear more masculine. When Will comes in on season 2, he wants to put lavender for the towel so that they could smell better, and Nate just completely rejects it.
You
Right.
don't want to get into their headspace. So here's the real thing. And I would put this out to our listeners. What did Beard order? What was his drink? We are never told, to my knowledge. So I'm wondering what his drink is. Cappuccino,
Mushroom tea.
mushroom
I
tea.
I definitely think it's a tea, and at this point, he's not ready to tell Ted yet that he likes tea.
Oh, so he's hiding it. I like that. Well, I'm just going to jump in because there's so much music in this episode, and we don't really have a direct musical theater reference, but there's so much music. And it's a particularly long episode, so there's a lot of opportunities between the interludes and the background music for us to hear that. The very first one is the only time in all three seasons, I think, except maybe the animated Christmas one, where they changed the opening music. And it's Jeff Tweedy, formerly of Wilco fame. It's his version of the Ted Lasso theme song. And it's slower, it's muted, and it feels like it's mirroring Beard's own depression and loneliness and heartache. I particularly liked that different take on that opening sequence.
The one that I really liked, I mean, obviously, the one at the very end, Hello, or once he sees Jane at the club, by Martin, I think it's Solveig and Dragonette. I think that one is Jane because she's not ready to commit. She's not ready to,
Mm,
the reason why they broke up in this episode is because he told her that he loved her and she did not reciprocate that. So I think that song is wholeheartedly Jane, and it comes on when she appears. But the song that really stood out to me was Claire de Lune. That rendition is probably one of the most beautiful things that I've heard. And I researched this a little bit that there's also a poem called Claire de Lune. And then it has that same mood of it being dreamlike and melancholic, which I think are two really important moods and tones in the episode.
yeah. And it's a particularly emo sort of electronic version of it as well, which is pretty powerful. I
Great catch.
Yeah, I loved the song that is playing when they get into Bones and Honey, and it's Never Met a Girl Like You Before. It's just a great background vibe as they're working with the Oxford Bros, and he sees the woman in red, and he says, "Feel free to strut," and it really feels like a song you could strut to. So I really kind
Did
of
you
like that.
notice how I think it was Jeremy strutted?
Yeah,
It might have been Boz. It was
yeah,
the
they
Nate
absolutely.
strut.
Yeah, they took him at his word and they're like, "Oh, strut, okay."
It was Boss, definitely. I have to think, yeah.
I couldn't believe he did the Nate strut though.
Yes. And
Well,
it was, opposite to what Ted told Nate, don't strut, the suit is what's going to make people see
oh,
you. But here, Beard told him, feel free to strut.
nice pull.
And then the really slow version of Blue Moon
Yeah.
to fit with that Clockwork Orange scene and the fight. It was really just from an emotional standpoint, feeling Beard's depth, we're already looking at heartache, we're already looking at depression, and what's normally a bit of a celebration song for Man City turns into this hyper emotional situation.
And I think it's an interesting nod to the darker side of football fandom in the hooligan aspect of it. We've already known that James Tart, Jamie's dad, who's in the lead in that situation, is an abusive person. It's hardly surprising that he would get into a fight.
Right? This entire episode is a trip.
I think that's just Beard's brain and how it works. And just because he is depressed, because he is sad, because he feels alone, I think that it's just him and his surroundings and Beard's mind.
I didn't know if the art in his apartment was trying to tell us something, because that is Burning Man that he kisses and pats. It's his belief sign, the Burning Man art in his apartment.
That's what he taps every time he walks in and every time he leaves. Yeah.
Right? And so I wasn't sure if they were just honoring Brendan Hunt, because Brendan Hunt is a burner, or if that is a part of Beard's personality as well. I went back and forth with myself, like, why are they showing us the 2002 Burning Man?
Well, and you have to ask, where does Beard end and Brendan begin? He puts so much of himself into the character, just like Jason into Ted. It is the first time we get to see his apartment, so that's kind of cool. Of course, there is this whole surreal aspect of Thierry Henry and the other host. Throughout the episode, they appear narrating this after hours. But like Claudia, I think that this is his brain's natural state.
So is Thierry Henry his imposter syndrome then?
Yeah, I think it's his voice inside. It could be what he tells himself and his own depression and loneliness. That's how I think it's intended. I don't think it was meant to be anything beyond his internal dialogue. There is only one villain in this episode, and that is loneliness, that is depression, and he's fighting against that. Yes, there's folks that are chasing him, but at the end, we find out that they don't mean him any harm. So the only real villain is himself. He is fighting his own demons.
Should we talk about Bones and Honey? We introduced it for a little bit, but there's so much in that scene alone. There's a Fight Club reference in the elevator. Poor Sarah Coombs.
But is it? I mean, is it? Yes, she ran out of her job thinking her flat was on fire. But as they say in the elevator, when she gets there, how happy will she be that her apartment is not on fire?
And that's the Fight Club reference. Is this poor clerk in Fight Club is told if he doesn't register for vet school and start studying, he will be killed. So his next day is going to be the best day of his life because he survived being assaulted in order to enroll in vet school. You have to watch the movie. It's a lot, but just hearing Beard reference it, I'm like, whoa, that is a deep cut.
And it's worth saying, I think, just for the audience, tomorrow is the most glorious day of Sarah Coombs' life. Her apartment will look more amazing to her than anywhere any of us have ever lived.
Right. So in Fight Club, it's his breakfast.
Okay, so what about his alias that he gives the Oxford chaps? And by the way, how about that Irish accent? Pretty amazing.
Very, very nice.
The professor from Merton who listened more than he talked.
Yes, clearly. But Delane, you did some research and you found out that the alias he uses, Declan Patrick Aloysius McManus, is actually someone else's real name.
It's Elvis Costello's real name. So why Beard pulled Elvis Costello's real name? We're referencing music again. Maybe Brendan Hunt / Beard is a huge fan of Elvis Costello's music, but I thought it was a made up name and I had to type it in, Declan Patrick McManus, and went, oh no.
Yeah. Or McGonagall as one of the other lads
Oh my
mistranslates it to. But what is fun here is that we get to see Brendan's improv chops up close. This is what he did with Jason all those years. They were in Boom Chicago, and it was Boom Chicago in Chicago, and then they went to Boom Chicago in Amsterdam, and they did all sorts of improv together.
Yes, and.
Yes, and he does a lot of yes and. When he's engaging these Oxford bros, I think the reason he picks that name, by the way, is that these are clearly not Elvis Costello fans, these three guys. I do wonder if Jane is the Oxford professor. Maybe she was a student in 2015, so she knew all those facts, and he's dating her now. Maybe she's a professor now, and so he didn't lie. Or he could have also been sort of continuing the improv with the boys when he tells them how he knows. Or was it a different pre-Jane relationship, and it really was a professor at the time that knew all those facts? But pretty astonishing performance.
Right? I have questions about who this professor is. You brought up Jane, though. Jane is a writer and producer played by Phoebe Walsh.
Amazing. What talent. And she's got moves. You see her on the dance floor at the end. She's moving pretty well.
We're in Bones and Honey. We got to talk about the lady in red. She has a name.
Yes. Mary. We find out later her name is Mary.
And there were a couple of lines that Beard has in exchange with her. I had to pause because they really made me laugh out loud. One of them I will read. He has ripped his pants. She said, "Your arse is showing." And he's like, "They're designed that way to make it easier to kiss my ass." I want to know who wrote that line.
Oh, it's so good.
Roy.
Yeah, Brett. That sounds like a Brett line. There's a line about the decency laws, and he's like, "I had no idea that you were so repressive." And she said, "Oh yes, we have. We can't let unexposed. What is the phrase she uses?
I think it's one bare ass will bring down the monarchy.
That's right.
Yes, that's what it was.
Yes, and his response is brilliant. How dare you speak of Prince Andrew that way? So,
We're
again,
not going to talk about that.
yeah, we can move on from that.
Well, one of the questions that you asked Elaine was whether it was platonic or whether he had gone back to the apartment for something else. I mean, I definitely think there was some attraction between Red and Beard, but at the end of the day, I think her, it was somebody different, somebody mysterious who attracted Beard, but mostly platonic. I think it was more platonic, and she was also in a relationship. Beard is mourning his most recent loss of Jane. So I think he's just in a headspace where maybe he does want to get to know this woman a little bit more. And like I said, maybe there is some attraction, but maybe not for it to go further.
I mean, I feel like she's at least toying with him, because when she looks at him and says run, after telling him he should answer, after inviting him up to the room, after saying take off your trousers, it seems like she's at least toying with him.
She's using him
Yeah.
to make her boyfriend jealous. Of course, I felt bad for Beard in that situation because he had no chance.
Jumped out to the
Yeah.
dumpster.
And
Right?
I think that is a reference to After Hours, because he keeps getting into these tough situations like that in that movie. It's also just a side reference to Matrix. The woman in red is always a distraction in the simulation. And earlier in the episode, Beard shares his philosophy that we are really in a simulation, very Matrix like. So, two Matrix references.
I want to talk about the dropped keys really quick, the missing key motif. I, so, keys open doors. Are we being told that Beard feels like he can't unlock something about himself?
That's quite a interpretation. I don't think it's wrong. I think it is an interesting motif, because it happens what, three times he drops his keys.
Yes, it happens 3 times, I counted, and 3 different people pick up the keys and hand him the keys. He was a little bit closed off. He doesn't give people that key to open up to who Beard is, so that's the way I interpreted it a little bit.
I was thinking it could be a call for help, right? He keeps dropping his key, keeps asking for help, but ultimately it's for naught, because when he finally does get back to his apartment, it breaks. It's almost as though the universe is driving him back to Jane, because he's never going to make it back to his apartment, either by losing his key or by having the key break when he finally does get home. And so he keeps feeling like he's inexorably being tugged towards Jane by the universe.
Now, I like that he's giving pieces of himself. He's finally allowing somebody in. I really like that take.
That's a good take.
And
So, speaking of the universe, do you want to dive into book club? I think you've got a pretty nice reference there.
oh, fantastic book, Judy Blume. Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. It's little boy. So Beard's in the church, and he is just trying to calm a little bit, find himself after it's been raining. His key is broken off into the lock. And what does that lead us to? Brendan's fabulous hula hooping skills.
Yeah, we get to see him actually showing him off up on stage. And I seriously was worried he was going to bump into someone, because that was tight quarters to do some hula hooping.
I'm jealous. He could walk, he could climb stairs hula hooping. It was amazing to watch. And then getting to see him reconnect with Jane wordlessly.
It creates a personal bubble when you're actually hula hooping, and that sort of mirrors the isolation and loneliness. And perhaps it's something he's doing to himself with his own hula skills. But I think it's interesting that Jane gives him the hula hoop and forces him to use it and sort of points him away, like, no, don't come close to me, go over there, get on the stage, show off.
That's
So
so
maybe
cool.
Jane was good enough for him.
Yeah.
Him.
Foreshadowing. Well, thank
Right.
you so much for joining us, Claudia. And we want to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll catch you tomorrow for our reaction to season 2, episode 10, No Weddings and a Funeral.
Claudia's got our outro quote for us.
Reason is powerless in the expression of love. Thank you so much for having me. This was so exciting.
Yay.
Yay.